Welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astrology Portraits. I'm Ralph Demetrius, one of the astrologers. In this segment, we're going to talk about Kevin Hart, the actor and comedian. And I happen to really like this chart, in that he's born with the sun at 13 degrees Cancer. Now, he's born at July 6, 1979. It's a Friday at 10:13 a.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So he was born in, the brotherly love city, the place where the Constitution was signed. He was born at 13 degrees Cancer, the position of the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, and the degree of the founding of the United States. So see what I mean? I just love this chart. He's born with the sun in the 11th house, with Virgo rising, and the moon in Sagittarius in the 4th house. So that sun in Cancer in the 11th house goes back to that moon in Sagittarius. And moon in Sagittarius is a very strong position. People don't usually see it that way, but we tend to see it as the secondary position for the rulership, the dynamic ruler, or masculine ruler of the moon, in an extrovert position. So it's dynamic extrovert position for the moon. And if you know people who have Sagittarian moons, they tend to be very emotionally enthusiastic. They tend to at times have kind of deep periods where they get a little sad, but then they spring right back out of it, just as you would expect Sagittarius. And that really fulfills the nature of the moon, very much as the sign Cancer does, which is more, a little more clingy and emotional and let me feed you. So he has the sun in the sign of the moon and the moon in a rulership position of the moon. So he's a person who's very emotional. Now, he has Virgo rising, so it tends to come through a little cooler. And what's really funny about this, he has Saturn conjunct the rising within 2 degrees and the North Node within 1 degree. So it goes 7 degrees, 9 degrees, 10 degrees. Ascendant, Saturn, and the North Node. So there's a reincarnational connection. There's a very strong connection to, usually when it's the nodes, to his matrilineal line, which you wouldn't be surprised with the Cancer sun, the moon in the 4th house. There's a very strong connection to the women in his matrilineal line. And it's reincarnational. The women who have been around him are women who have been around him in other lifetimes and been significant. With Saturn rising, he can come across as, stiff, caustic, which is funny because with the Sagittarius moon, he's a very funny person. He is. He's a comedian. With his sun in Cancer in the 11th house, he has Venus at 0 degrees Cancer leading it. So whatever leads the sun tends to get there first. So when you have Venus leading the sun, it makes people very charming, because the first thing you meet is, that's their Venus. Now it's in Cancer, and realize Cancer has a crusty side to it. It's the crab. So sometimes Cancerians can seem a little crabby on the outside, a little stiff, but once you get past there, they're mushy. They're just lovely. They're mushy. They're emotional and they're flexible. Once they get past that, now one of the reasons why he makes a great comedian is that opposite that moon is Mars in the 10th house in Gemini, conjunct the midheaven. Okay, what's that? That's the funny man. Mars in Gemini, the prankster, the wise guy in the 10th house, Mars. It's all about wit. It's all about humor. It's about the quick phrase. One-liners, quick jokes. And if you've watched his performances, his stand-up performances, it's these great little short phrases. That's really him. And it comes from this core of the moon and also Neptune in the 4th house in Sagittarius. So deep within his home life, he had a very opportunity to really use his imagination. And there was also a spiritual theme there, of understanding people on a deeper level. But it comes through that Saturn. It's what's cool about the Saturn rising, even in Virgo, is that people take them seriously. He seems much older than he is. He was born in 1979. It's not that long ago. He's a relatively young man. But he seems older because of that Saturn rising. Also, Virgo rising is actually a very good position for someone in acting or someone in movies especially, because they take direction very well. They really pay attention. Virgo is a mutable sign, so they adjust well. Do this. Okay, I'm going to do it exactly that way, and they're very precise about it. The Mars at the midheaven really works with that because Mars is in Gemini, the ascendant, Saturn is in Virgo. These two are square, but they're both in Mercury-ruled signs: communication, wit, precision. So once again, he's someone who will take the time and know his lines. I imagine when he gets to a set, he knows all of his lines. He knows all of the other actors' lines. He's really studied them. He's very, very prepared. And so when he, brings great wit to the situation, he's coming from a very strong foundation, because this is a hard-working person who's, like I said, Virgo is a sign that we call dutiful. It feels a very strong sense of duty. What's interesting, too, is that the Vesta, which oftentimes relates to Virgo, is in the 9th house, along with Chiron, in Taurus. Well, his long-term view is about having comfort in his life. Also, money. It's in Taurus, the sign of money. So he came from, Philadelphia. He was probably born in North Philadelphia. He didn't come from a wealthy family. His future, he wanted to see in his future. He had a very bright, shining light in his future as, I want to be wealthy. I want to be successful, His midheaven's in the 10th house, because it can be in 9th, 10th, or 11th typically. Acclaim was important to him. But in terms of his long-term view, comfort is real big up there. And he suffered enough early in life to know how important that was. His part of fortune, which is about how he interfaces the world, is in the 5th house, the house of creativity, in Capricorn. So his goal is to have a very long career of being creative. And that's cool. That's very cool. You like to see that in a person who's going to be successful. The moon in the 4th house is very interesting. It's in Sag, and it's right at 0 degrees Sag. Okay. There was a certain optimism that he experienced in his home life. And within his home, he's someone who's very generous. In fact, we saw a stand-up that he did during COVID, where he actually hosted it in his home. Well, how many comedians do you know of that would host an entire audience in their home? I mean, isn't that a Cancerian thing, a moon in Sagittarius? My home is big enough that I can accommodate all of you. Well, how cool is that, right? Now, interestingly, he has Uranus in Scorpio in the 3rd house, the house of communication. And Uranus is about excitement. Scorpio is about stinging, a stinging barb, and he is very good at delivering the stinging barb. There is times when he gets himself in trouble with it around people by having just a bit too much of a sharp tongue. But, he's got Venus leading his sun. He's sensitive to what he's done, and then he turns around and says, yeah, but I love you. It's an interesting combination. But once again, with Cancerians, you oftentimes see that. They're the crusty outside, they're the soft inside. The Sagittarius Moon, like I said, is a very strong moon position. It gives great mutability to the moon and great optimism. The 13 degrees Cancer Sun conjunct the brightest star in the sky. It's hard to beat that. It really is hard to beat that. So he's a very, very talented man. So I hope you found that interesting. Come see our portraits each Tuesday at Planetary Calendar Astrology. And then Fridays, we post our forecast for the coming week. You can go to planetarycalendarastrology.com and you can find your, calendars on our books and things like that, and other portraits and how-tos about how to use the calendar. And until next time, be well.